Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Authentic Christian Podcast. I'm Aaron. This is Scott. And today we're starting what will probably be a two-part series on pride and humility. All right. So we want to talk today. We're going to start off talking about pride. This may be one long episode, but I think probably going to be two episodes. Talking about pride initially, what the Bible says about it, why it's important for us to study it, and then humility, being humble, the fact that we're commanded actually to be humble. And then we're given instructions on how to do that. So we're going to talk first of all about pride. Why would you say, Scott, this is a very important thing to talk about?
Pride goeth before the fall.
Yeah.
I mean, pride is, even in pop culture, they call pride one of the 7 deadly sins and all that. Well, I don't know. The Bible describes it all exactly that way, but it is certainly one of the main issues, pride of life, right? I mean, it's a fundamental issue. You constantly see the devil had pride. You see pride in some of the kings. You see pride in a number of different people.
Yeah.
The Bible talks about pride in a negative way. What is it, like Matthew, Mark 7, 20 through 23 talks about that.
Yeah, flip over there. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think pride is it's something that is really praised in a lot of parts of the culture. I mean, we just literally finished in the month of June. A lot of people celebrate it as Pride Month, right?
Yeah, they call it Pride Month. And
where they, of course, are promoting and are proud of homosexuality and the whole LGBTQ movement, which the Bible calls an abomination, right? So people in our culture, they literally have a whole month where they don't see any sort of thing wrong with promoting something. Now, like I agree with you said, in the Bible, pride is a big deal. And I think pride is really deceptive because a lot of times it's good to study pride because most people who have problems with pride don't think they have problems with pride. It's very deceptive. And it's funny when we get into some of the verses talking about it, we'll go there in just a minute, but one of the Old Testament verses, it talks about the word pride, the word puffed up. The word means like enveloped with smoke. So the idea is, if you're driving a car in a foggy morning, you can't see what's in front of you. Like you cannot you can't see physically what's in front of you. And spiritually, that's what pride is. Pride is very deceptive. A lot of times if you say, well, I don't have a problem with pride, you might. And so I think a study like this will help us to say, okay, these are some characteristics, some qualities. And I think you should always be open to the idea of, am I a prideful person?
Yeah, pride. I guess you could put some other synonyms out there. Hubris, in certain
arrogance.
Arrogance, certain extreme examples. Self-confidence can be taken too far into pride.
Too far, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Romans says, don't think of yourself more highly than you ought. Yeah. So there's a level of confidence and self-esteem you should have, but you can take that proper value. That's right. And you can have more than that. So, well, that's great. Yeah. It's important to study. I would encourage everybody, us included, as we go through this episode, just ask yourself, is it possible? Is it possible that I'm prideful? And just look at the characteristics, look at some of the things that come along with it. Look at how God looks at it. And remember, repentance, I want to say this the right way. Repentance is not a bad thing. Like we live in a culture that says being wrong is like one of the ultimate evils. And it's what pushes so many people to never even entertain the idea that they could be wrong. Right.
Yeah.
And so if the culture says, oh, no, there's no way you're wrong and you have to just like die on this hill at any cause, I just don't think that's the biblical approach. The biblical approach is what you should be pleased with is what God's pleased with.
Bro, we invented new terms like your truth, your self-truth, and all this other kind of stuff. The whole new concept of what is your truth.
It's postmodern thought.
Reality is subjective.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is all based upon the way you perceive it.
Yeah.
Some of reality and the way you feel about it is perspective and the way you perceive it, but there's actual objective reality.
Yeah. Postmodernism is the idea that everybody has their own truth. There's not, you can't really say that you are right and others are wrong.
And that's the most prideful position. If you really want to philosophically break that down, you're saying you're the source of truth.
That's right. 100% agree. 100% agree. So as we go through this, don't look at it as, well, I don't know. I guess just don't be afraid with repentance. I mean, and I don't think we should be because it's okay to say you're wrong. What your ultimate goal should be is you want to think about things the way God thinks about things. And so if you think about something differently than God thinks and you're able to repent, that's a great thing. because now you're on par with God, right? Don't look at it as, well, I can't believe he's wrong, or I don't ever want to be wrong. It's like, no, you want to be on God's side,
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let's go ahead and read some passages. So we're going to do a lot of reading today. The Bible, God is the source of truth. And so we're going to look at what the Bible says about pride and arrogance and how to cultivate humility, etc. So Scott, you mentioned Mark 7. Go ahead and start reading in Mark 7, verses 20 through 23.
And he said, that which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, and foolishness. I'm sorry, I was going to read the last one there.
Yeah, go ahead.
All these evil things come from within and defile the man.
So Jesus is talking, and he's just got done talking about these people who were, the Pharisees were like, hey, your disciples aren't washing their hands according to our Pharisaical traditions. And Jesus said, that doesn't defile a man. Whether they wash their hands or not doesn't defile them. What truly defiles spiritually is the things that come out of the heart of a man. Mm-hmm. And so he talks about all these things in this list: evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications. When I think about adultery and fornication, I think about Matthew 5, 27 and 28, where it says, whoever looks at a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. And what he's saying is, no one commits physical adultery without having lust happen first. When you lust after something, the desire grows, and then eventually, if you get the opportunity, you might act on it. And so it's sort of the same thing. He's saying here, like, all these evil things start in your heart, and you need to nip them in the bud there. And so one of the things, because then they won't, if you nip it in the bud when it's in your mind, then it will never lead to a physical action.
Yeah, you don't let it come to fruit.
Yes, exactly.
But there's a passage that says something about that. Right? When sin, what is it? Oh man, why am I just losing my memory as I get older?
It's James 1, 14.
Temptation, lust leads to sin when it's conceived, when it's brought to full. Yeah, read it for me, because I'm
so James 1:14. But each one is tempted when he's drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Yeah. It's a process. Sorry, my James 2 page falls out, so I got to get a rebound.
Yeah, that's why I started using digital. I love my paper Bible. I got a lot of notes in it, but I don't use it anymore because I started tearing it up.
I remember one time my car, it's funny enough, my car caught on fire. It was the guy changed my oil, and he put a rag over the tailpipe when he was, I guess, working on the car up under it, and he forgot to take the oily rag off. So I was driving down the highway the next day, and someone pulls up next to me, and they're like pointing under my car, and I thought that I was like, I didn't cut anybody off. I thought they were like angry at me, so I was just like driving, and finally I look over, and they're like, I'm like, fire under my car, and they're like. So I pulled over, and I get down and look under my car, and my tailpipe is like, literally there's a flame there. I can tell it's a rag.
You know what you should have told them? You should have said, they ain't fire under my car. What are you talking about? You don't know nothing.
Yeah, we're going 70 miles an hour down the road.
Yeah, we're talking about pride.
Oh, pride?
Yeah,
no. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so I got the fire put out with a couple bottles of water, but it was just a rag. Anyway, why did I even bring that up? What were we talking about?
Man, I don't even know now.
Doesn't matter. Okay, back to the text.
Back the footage up. Tell us in the comment section, what were we talking about? So
one of the things in this list, I just forget why I even started telling you that story. So anyway, so in this list, you've got out of the heart of men, that's where they proceed: evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, evil eye, blasphemy, pride. And so you look at throughout the Bible, if we were to say, hey, what's some of the worst sins in the world? We would say adultery, fornication, murder, theft, coveting, wanting something so bad that you'll take it, you'll do whatever you can to get it. Wickedness, yep. But then it's like, would we be like an evil eye looking at, or evil thoughts, or pride, or just being foolish? Like, would we think that that's that big of a deal? And yet what we're going to see today is pride is spoken of a lot in the Bible, and it's a big deal to God. And maybe sometimes the sins that we might be guilty of, sometimes we want to downplay. It's like, oh, well, pride can't be that bad because I've been prideful. Or like, yeah, evil thoughts. They can't, the Bible says they're sins, but they're not that bad. Well, why? It's because we're trying to justify it. It's like a person, if you are a judge, or if someone you know is murdered and there's a trial, you don't want the jurors to be made up of people who've committed the same sin as the person being tried, or else you'd be like, well, they're going to sort of think, oh, well, that guy's not that bad. The penalty shouldn't be that harsh because he's guilty of the same thing I'm guilty of.
Nobody wants to admit that they're monsters.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we're capable.
We want to
of
justify
evil.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to say, well, he did this thing and I did this thing and I'm not a monster, am I? Because if you admit that you're guilty of the same thing as someone else, you have to condemn yourself at the same time. Most of us don't want to say, well, I'm just as capable of evil as XYZ or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Nazis, are you capable of that? World War II? A lot of people probably don't give much thought to that, but how did the average citizen get to that point? It's a different video, different subject, but you know, you're capable of good and evil.
If you don't have something to check that morality, you know, which Christianity is obviously the biggest one.
Yeah. Let's
look at some more passages. This is 1 John 2:16. 1 John 2:16 says this. I'm going to start in verse 15. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. This is talking about the sinful things of the world, obviously. God so loved the world, John 3:16. That's not same, different context. Verse 16, for all that is in the world, all right, these are things in the world, right? The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the what? The pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. So the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. I've heard those described, and I think their easy way to explain it is lust of the eyes is what feels good. Lust of the eyes is what looks good. Pride of life is what makes me look good. And a lot of times, the problems with pride start from us wanting to look. We want people to see us as better than others, possibly, right? We think we're better than other people. I'm just speaking in generalities.
Lust comes from a place of entitlement in the first place. So just the idea of starting to lust means that you're looking at something you have decided on your own that you deserve that thing for whatever reason.
And the pride of life aspect of it is basically things in life that make me look good, sound good, you know,
reputation, fame, glory, all that kind of stuff.
Those are all things that can drive you to pride. We'll talk about those here in a little bit. All right, look at 2 Timothy 3:2, Scott. Go ahead and read that. I will say the passage in Mark 7:22, that word, and the words here in 2 Timothy 3:2 and Romans 1:30, the same Greek word. 1 John 2:16 is a little bit different, but it means making arrogant boasts. So it might be a little bit different Greek words, but the idea is still pride, arrogance, boasting, that sort of thing. So, all right, read 2 Timothy 3:2.
For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, and unholy. Yeah, that's like, that's what I was getting at. Like you can become so, when you're looking at somebody and they're lusting after and they're coveting after and they want these things, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, that's all pride. Ultimately, it's coming from that source of pride because you think for some reason you deserve all these things. Yeah. That you don't have to say thank you. Yeah, you better give that to me. I deserve it after all anyway. It's that kind of an attitude, right? That it leads to.
Like you said, I mean,
pride is like we read those verses just a minute ago. It's like a source that leads to so many other different sins.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, just look at that list. Lovers of themselves. Yeah. I mean, Jesus said basically what? Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus tells you to put others ahead of yourself. Lovers of themselves is like, no, I'm going to get mine.
Yeah. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your
neighbor as yourself.
Right. Yeah. But these people, it's not about God. No. It's not about your neighbor.
My neighbor better love me. Yeah. Exactly. It's all about them. Yep. Lovers of money. We're going to talk about that in a minute because that can be one source of pride, arrogance. Boasters. That's literally what the word alazonia, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, in 1 John 2:16, making arrogant boasts, right? Let me see if that's even the same Greek word. I didn't even look at that till just now. It is. Alazon, boaster. Alazon. Sorry, alazon. I got it wrong. Boasters. So the word in 1 John 2:16, the pride of life, that's the word that is in 2 Timothy 3:2, boasters, right? Proud, right? So you have lovers of money, lover themselves, boasters, they have that word proud, blasphemers, blasphemio, whatever it means to speak against, right? So whatever you're speaking against, right? God, disobedient to parents. Once again, you don't appreciate what your parents did for you. That's an arrogant thing. Unthankful. I mean, literally, like you said, pride is a root sin. Like pride is the root of many, many, many sins.
Once you're only concerned about yourself, everybody else is property. Yeah. It's just things. It's material. Like, why should I feel bad? The only reason for me to feel bad about throwing this phone on the ground and smashing it is because I have to buy another one.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Once you start putting people in that context in your mind,
Yeah.
it's over.
Yes, things.
You're going to ruin yourself, your family, your friends, anybody in your life. You're just going to, as long as that connection is there, you're going to be nothing but a detriment to those people if you're just selfish like that.
Think about it. In every
Pride
like
ruins things.
you're a big video gamer. I don't play as much anymore. I used to play a lot.
Yeah.
But what's an NPC?
I wish I could.
What's an NPC?
Non-player character.
Non-player character. And so a non-player character is the idea that most people in their lives, like, yes, you, of course, in your life are the primary character, right? But most people treat other people as NPCs.
Yeah.
Like they treat, like if I'm the main character and you're an NPC, I literally don't care about anything about you except what you can do for me. Like in a video game, it's like, oh, what gun can this guy give me? Or what pass is he going to? Whereas in real life, it's like, no. You're not an NPC. You are an individual who has a soul. You have a family. Like when I'm thinking about like you, like working together, if I make a decision for you, like I shouldn't be thinking, well, I don't care if it affects him, if it's good for me, because the decision should be, hey, he's got kids. Like, how is this decision I'm going to make? How's it going to influence others? And if you don't think about other people, if you're unaware, if you're not self-aware of how, I'm trying to
self-absorbed.
If you're self-absorbed, if you're not thinking about how your actions affect other people, that might be a source of thinking, hey, man, I got a pride problem. If I don't think about how my decisions affect other people, if I just think about how they affect me.
In film and the movies, you can think about it as like you treat everybody like they're an extra. They don't matter. They're just off there. They're not really a big part of the story. They just exist in the background to add a little color or flair.
Yeah, exactly.
Little extra something to the film.
Totally.
Like, you got to treat people like they're people. Everybody's the main actor. Everybody's the main character or whatever you want to think about in life. You got to treat everybody like that. You want to be treated like that. Anyway.
Exactly. In that text, if you keep reading, you've got unloving, verse 3, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good. Verse 4, traitors, headstrong, and haughty. Right? That's another one of the words in the New Testament. The word is tufu. Let me pronounce it. I think it's tufu. Tufu. All right. Anyway, it means haughty, but it's interesting. The word, not the work. It means to be puffed up. And the root of that is the word for smoke. Mm-hmm. That's what I was mentioning earlier about
typho, smoke or smolder.
Yeah, the root of it is, typho. So basically it's this idea of like when you're puffed up, it's like you're enveloped with smoke. The idea is if you're conceited, if you're arrogant, if you're haughty, you can't really physically, it's the word for smoke. Spiritually, it's like you have this like fog. Like you can't perceive things the way they are because of your pride. That's why you're deceived. You can't see things the way they really are. Right. So when you go through the New Testament, look at one more. Look at Romans 1:30. Now, this isn't a long list, right? In Romans chapter 1 and verse 20, Paul's talking about basically since the creation of the world, you have no excuse not to see that there's a God because God has shown his invisible attributes being seen by the things that are made, right? So that you're without excuse. Nobody can go out and look at the creation and say they didn't have an excuse to know there was a God, right? So people that say, well, I don't see the evidence. The Bible says, no, you actually don't have an excuse. Mm-hmm. Most people see the evidence, but want to live immorally in a certain manner. And so they suppress that truth, which is what the text goes on to say. And their foolish hearts are darkened. So when I meet somebody who says they're an atheist, and they don't believe the evidence, and they would follow the evidence wherever it goes. I'm like, the Bible says that's not true. Mm-hmm. The Bible says you have proof. You just don't want the proof because you want to live a certain way. Therefore, God has allowed you to be darkened, right? Anyway, professing to be wise, verse 22, they became fools. Verse 24, 26, and 28, God keeps talking about giving them up, giving them over. So verse 24, therefore God gave them up to uncleanness and the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, right? Verse 26, for this reason, God gave them up to vile passions. And he talks about homosexuality, right? He talks about lesbianism and homosexuality there in those verses. And then verse 28, even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting. And then he gives this long list of sins. Listen how awful some of these sins are. All unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud. Boasters, that's that word again that was in 1 John 2:16. Pride of life, boasters of life. Inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents. Undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful. And then it says, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things, what kind of such things? Well, pride's in that list. Being proud. not only those that practice those things are deserving of death, but also not only do the same, but approve of those that practice them. You know, I've seen a lot of things in my life where, you know, yeah, we agree pride is wrong, but if you support pride, if you support ungodly pride, if you support other people on this list, like if someone's engaged in sexual immorality and you support it.
Yep. If you support the trans movement, God's going to treat you like you're a trans individual.
Yeah. He literally says that if you're supporting it, you're basically approving those that practice.
If you support homosexuality, God's going to treat you like a homosexual.
Yeah.
If you support pedophilia, God's going to treat you like a pedophile. Whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm bringing those up because, like I said, Pride Month and all that stuff going on, it's really relevant in our minds right now.
Yeah.
God's going to treat you the same way. It don't matter if you're a 35-year-old person that just votes for them and says, we should support them. Yeah. You're guilty.
Yeah. And the thing about it too, is if you really cared about those people, because I know in my life, I've seen people, you know, who would claim to be Christians. And then they're like, one of their best friends is like a practicing person that practices some of these things. Right. And it wouldn't just apply to that, but it would apply to all these other sins on this list. And they almost endorse it and like encourage them. They're like, oh, well, it's not for me. If you're encouraging it, you're basically just as guilty. Mm-hmm. Now, what you should be doing is you should love them enough to tell them. I'm not saying you got to be mean to them, right? I'm not saying that you can't associate with them. I'm saying, but your association should be trying to teach them, trying to encourage them to come back to what God wants from them.
You should be confessing the gospel, which is to speak the same thing. You should be speaking the same thing the Bible speaks about it.
Sure. Yeah,
to them.
That's right.
That's what you should be doing. Confessing the truth.
Yeah. Thanks for watching GBN. If you like programs like this and you want to watch other programs, maybe new ones that you haven't heard of yet, that you know, look, there's something out there. I just haven't figured it out yet or discovered it. Go to the App Store. You can also find this on Apple TV, Roku. Search Gospel Broadcasting Network and download the app. It's a little globe. It says GBN in the middle. And you can open up the app. I have the app open right now. And you can look at all these different programs. Truth on Wheels, Drawn Toward God, which is like an animated series that, as it's explained in the Bible, it sort of draws out the image. Counterpoint, The Authentic Christian, which is one of the shows that I'm on. Make It Plain, Preaching the Gospel, Answering the Error. So many different programs that I personally grow from myself, even before I came to GBN. We also have Books of the Bible. You can watch people who've been teaching books of the Bible at preaching schools for years teach through 50, I think right now, books of the Bible, verse by verse. And you can really just use this app to study, learn more about God's word. So I'd recommend, if you like Bible study, if you want to grow closer to God, draw near to him, James 4, 7 through 10, download the Gospel Broadcasting Network app, and it'll help your everyday studies. Thanks for watching. All right, let's go to Old Testament passages, talking about pride. Go to Proverbs. I'd say if I said, what's the most famous? No, that's not probably a good idea. What's the most well-known verse for evil things in the Old Testament? Like 6 things the Lord hates, 7 are abomination. That's Proverbs 6, right? So that's famous. When someone asks me, hey, what does God think is evil in the Old Testament? Proverbs 6. That's famous to me, right to my mind, right? So Proverbs 6, you've got in verses 16 and 17, you've got these 2 things, but look at the very first thing on the list, right? If you said, okay, let's make like you ever go to a state fair and they have like the thing where you go, boom, and you the sledgehammer and the thing goes,
yeah.
And if you're super strong,
like
it's
strong man.
Yeah, strong, whatever. Yeah. So those guys in the studio probably love my sound effects.
Yeah, that's right. When you record those, I'll just
what is if God had a sin meter, right? What would be at the top of it? We'd say, well, rape, murder, abuse, like those sorts of things. Look at God's. Now, I'm not saying these are the only 6 things the Lord hates, but it says these are 6 things the Lord hates. And that word there in the next one, abomination. 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. That word, toaba, means detestable, disgusting in a moral sense. It is sickening to God. How we feel or think about when like a man beats his wife or someone molests a child, that sickening feeling, that's what God thinks about these things, right? And one of the things about Christianity in becoming more in character like God is we're trying to think, how does God think about this? And why don't I think about it that way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't say you love the Lord, but then like laugh at sinful, evil, wicked things like they're a joke or funny or something.
You can do it, but God will call you hypocrite.
Yeah. You got to learn
to hate what the Lord hates.
To hate what the Lord hates.
That's right.
You're trying to take on his character.
Yeah.
We want to be just like God in the ways that we can, not in power or things like that.
Sure.
But truthfulness, honesty, righteousness, all that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so in this episode, we're trying to say, hey, how can we look at pride the way God looks at pride, right? So that's the first one in that list. A proud look. It's if you look like an interlinear, it's two words in Hebrew. One means eyes, and one means haughty of the word. So exalted, right? So this is Lexham Theological Word Book says this. This noun is derived from the Hebrew verb rum, which can mean to be exalted or high, like lifted up, right? This term can mean haughty, Isaiah 2:11, Isaiah 2:17, Isaiah 10:12, Jeremiah 48:29. It's like Isaiah 10:12. I know that passage is from Assyria. It says, therefore it shall come to pass when the Lord has performed all his work on Mount Zion and Jerusalem, he will say, I will punish the fruit of the arrogant heart of the king of Assyria and the glory of his haughty looks, right? So the arrogant king of Assyria, his haughty looks. So he's basically talking about this arrogant idea. And the mindset is some resources say looking down the nose at somebody, like looking down, of course, thinking that you're better than them. And this is the passage I think you brought up. Go to New Testament, 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 6. This idea of, being puffed up and looking down on somebody else. I know it's a New Testament verse, but read 1 Timothy 3:6.
Yeah, talking about qualifications.
Read it.
Not a novice, lest being puffed up with pride, he fall into the same condemnation as the devil.
Okay, so here's one clue. Why does God hate pride so much, right? Conceitedness, arrogance, puffed up. 1 Timothy 3:6, as you said, in discussing qualifications of an elder, it says an elder should not be a novice. Neophytos is the Greek word, means newly planted. Shouldn't be a new convert, right? Neophyte, yeah. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be a new convert. Why shouldn't it be a new convert? Lest being puffed up with pride, lest being blinded by that smoke from this pride and this arrogance, he'll fall into the same what?
Condemnation as the devil.
As who?
Satan.
The devil.
Lucifer. Whatever way you want to say it. The devil in this particular case.
Yeah. And so one reason God might have put pride at the very beginning of that list is because, like we said, pride is a root of a lot of other sins. I mean, think about the Garden of Eden. How is pride involved in that? I mean, the devil obviously had fallen already, but it tells you in 1 Timothy 3:6, one of the reasons for his call, the sin that caused him to fall, was pride. Why? I don't know. Proud of what? In what way? I don't know. But then think about Adam and Eve. God, what's one of the sources of their pride? God says, don't do this, or else. He says to Eve, you shouldn't do that. Maybe Eve thinks, well, maybe I know better than God. Maybe God said that, but I don't really need to trust his word.
Yeah, I mean, the temptation was what? It was, if you eat this, you'll be like God.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially the same as 1 John 2:16, man. We've talked about this in many episodes, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I guess some of them are years ago. Let's see. Where's it at?
For all that is in the world, the lust of...
Well, yeah, that's what we said. I'm talking about Genesis 3:6. So 1 John 2:16, everything that's in the world, lust of the eyes, lust of flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. Listen to Genesis 3:6. So when the woman saw the tree was good for food, that's lust of the flesh. It was pleasant to the eyes, lust of the eyes, tree desirable to make one wise. She took of its fruit and ate. Make one wise, that's pride of life. So 1 John 2:16 and Genesis 3:6, man, they're parallel. And so in the garden, you've got the sin of the devil, pride, caused him to fall. And then, of course, that transcends over to Adam and Eve. And in fact, if you look in Obadiah, it's only got one chapter, but Obadiah 3 says, the pride of your heart has deceived you, you who dwell in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. In context, it's talking about Edom, the descendants of Esau, and how they were living in this up in this rock cliff fortress. And they're like, nobody can take us down. Like, we're safe. And that's what he says. The pride of your hearts has deceived you, you who dwell in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. You say in your heart, who will bring me down to the ground? Right? And then he says, even if you ascend as high as the eagle or put your nest among the stars, the Lord says, I will bring you down. So basically, this passage in Obadiah 3 and all the other passages show that God hates pride, and it's deceptive, because a lot of times it's hard to see when you even have a pride problem.
Yeah. Talking about the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a good, just to mention that.
Yeah.
Talking about bringing down.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's really it. I'm just saying, like, you made me think of that. You're talking about even if you go up to the stars, he'll bring you down. I mean, it just made me think of the Tower of Babel. Everybody got prideful. They tried to build a giant tower. They tried to have this attitude that God needed to humble. And so that's what he does.
It's interesting. It's not. Let me see if I have a note in here.
He does that to every nation. Think about Herod. He gave that speech, and they were like, he speaks as a god. And he's like, yes. Well, what happened to him?
Yeah. I hear you.
King of Babylon.
This is what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Now, in Tower of Babel, Genesis 11, they said in verse 4, Genesis 11:4, they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower." Right? The Hebrew word's migdal. A lot of people think it's like a pyramidal, like a ziggurat, basically, right?
Yeah.
Let us build a tower or a ziggurat or a step pyramid, right? Whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. So what they want to do? Build a big tower. You said it. Say it again.
Make a name.
Make a name for ourselves.
For themselves.
Yeah.
They didn't build it for God.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, let's build this giant monument to honor the Lord and all the great world that he's given us to live in. No, they said, let's make a name for ourselves.
Yeah. You know, the Bible doesn't say this. It's not inspired, but Josephus, he's an early writer. He said that Nimrod said that he wanted to build a tower so high that God could never flood the world again. That's what, of course, Josephus says. Now, is that just something that got made up and passed down through history? I don't know. But, you know, after the flood, this is after the flood. And so if you had someone like Nimrod, if it's true, you'd have someone who's so arrogant. He says, we're going to make a name for ourselves. We're going to build a tower so high, God could never flood it again. And God's like, come on, buddy.
I know.
No.
Yeah. It's
language
humorous.
confused, separate. Because he said, multiply and fill the earth, and they didn't. And so God's like, okay, I'm going to make you, right? Okay, let's look at some more. We've already seen. We already saw a scene that pride's a big deal, and we do not want to be guilty of it. So I want us to look through some scriptures. I'm just going to read you a bunch of. I sent you a list of Proverbs. Do you have it? All right, I'll read it too. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I do have it.
Okay. Proverbs 8:13.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Do you want to read?
Yeah.
You read the first one. You read Proverbs 8:13, and then I'll read the next one.
The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way.
Keep going.
Okay. Counsel is mine and sound of wisdom.
No.
I missed it. Yeah, you're right.
Missed a line.
And the froward mouth.
Yeah.
Do I hate?
So Proverbs 8:13 says, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. What's the beginning of wisdom? To hate evil. To see evil the way God sees it.
Yeah.
Pride and arrogance, and the evil way, and the perverse mouth. God says what? I hate. How should we look at pride? We should hate it.
Hate it.
If we're trying to see the way God sees it.
The
Proverbs,
beginning of wisdom. Yeah, I have to think about that. I think I want to start a sermon about that. Anyway.
Go for it. A lot in Proverbs.
Yeah.
Proverbs 11:2. It says, when pride comes, then comes shame. But with the humble is wisdom. So in the verses we look at today, this is the first time you're going to see pride and humility contrasted. So whenever pride comes, what ultimately comes? Shame.
Shame.
In one form or another. Pride comes before a fall. If you live your whole life and you're prideful and nothing happens to you on this earth, on Judgment Day, guess what? You're going to be brought to shame, right? You're not going to stand before God. But the humble is wisdom. Proverbs 15:25. Can you read that?
Yeah, I can. The Lord will destroy the house of the proud, but he will establish the border of the widow.
The Lord will destroy the house of the proud. God hates pride. He hates arrogance. He's going to destroy it, and you will be brought to shame, right? This is Proverbs 16:5. Proverbs 16 has a lot of it. Proverbs 16:5 says, everyone proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Everyone proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Later in chapter 16, verse 18, this is one of the most famous. I'm saying famous a lot today. I don't know. Pride goes before destruction. A haughty spirit before a fall, before stumbling. Proverbs 16:19. Better to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud or plunder. So it's basically saying, look, it's better to be humble and lowly and meek and, low on the world standards, right, than to be involved with these proud, rich, wealthy people who are dividing plunder. Do Proverbs 21:4 and 24. Proverbs 21, verse 4 and verse 24.
An high look and a proud heart and the plowing of the wicked is sin.
So a haughty look, prideful look, proud heart, and the plowing or lamp of the wicked are sin. So haughty look, proud heart, what is it? Sin. Read verse 24.
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to say it. Yeah, 24. Proud and haughty scorner is his name, who dealeth in proud wrath.
New King James says, a proud and haughty man, scoffer is his name. So you could also do a Bible search on the word scoffer and see what that means. You know, in 2 Peter 3, you have Peter. Sorry, this cord, I'm like trying to put arm go under it, arm go over it. In 2 Peter 3, it talks about scoffers who say, yeah, the Lord's not going to return. Like, God's not coming back. And he says, yeah, there were scoffers like that before the flood who basically said, oh, the Lord's not going to flood the earth. This crazy old man Noah and his ark. And then what happens?
Flooded.
God keeps his word.
Mm-hmm.
So a proud and a haughty man, scoffer is his name. He acts with arrogant pride. We'll talk about ways you can act with arrogant pride. One of the biggest ways you can act with arrogant pride is to think that you know better than God. To think, well, God said this, but I think I'm going to go with something else. Like, God said this to be saved, but I think I'm going to do this. God said that I need to do this with my life, but I don't really want to do that. I'm going to do this, right? So that's one way. Proverbs 28:25. Let's read that as the last proverb we'll read.
All right. He who is of a proud heart stirs up strife, but he who trusts in the Lord will be prospered.
He who is of a proud heart stirs up strife. That brings me back to Proverbs 6:17, where think about, of all these 6 things the Lord hates, 7 are an abomination: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness that speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren. Discord, strife, right? Let me see if they're different words. Discord, controversy, strife. A little bit different. Same idea, different words. So essentially what you have here is you have this idea in Proverbs that God hates it. It's an abomination. If you have it, he will bring it low. He will take it down. You will not be successful with it. And of course, we could go through lots of Psalms. I've got 2 on my list. This is just Psalm 10:4. I did a search for the word pride, arrogance in Psalms. There were so many. I'm like, oh, we can't read that. It's too many. The wicked is proud in his countenance. He does not seek God. The wicked in his proud countenance does not seek God. God is in none of his thoughts. So if you are somebody who doesn't really have God in your thoughts very often, you're proud. The Bible calls it wicked. We're going to see a little bit later, though, that you can even say that you have God in your thoughts, but if you don't submit to him, the Bible's going to call it wicked as well. Mm-hmm. Psalm 119:21, what does God do to the proud? You rebuke the proud, the cursed, who stray from your commands. So if you're proud, God's going to rebuke you, and the Bible calls you cursed, right? In the New Testament, Luke, the first chapter of Luke, when Mary is speaking, you know, the "My soul magnifies," that song Magnificat or something like that. That's where it comes from, Luke 1:46, right? But look at verse 50. Read Luke 1:50 through 52 for me. Read Luke 1:50 through 52.
Okay. And his mercy is on those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He has put down the mighty from their thrones and exalted the lowly.
So it says here that he scatters the proud. He puts down the mighty, and he exalts the lowly. That would, of course, be the humble, right? So over and over, the Bible condemns pride, condemns the proud. Yet we talked about this earlier. What does our culture do about pride?
Oh, they love it.
They love it.
We teach it. That's what I was saying. I mentioned self-confidence earlier. That's the most innocuous form that we teach.
Yeah.
I think we could have a healthy debate on whether even that's a valid term to use, self-confidence. You know, like, should you be confident in yourself inherently just because, or should you earn the confidence in yourself? But that's a different discussion.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's the most basic thing. And a lot of people skew that way too far.
Yeah.
You know, we've gone to the point, like I said earlier, everybody's got their own truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they think they do anyway.
I think when I think about, I have it written in my Bible somewhere. I know I could find it pretty quickly if I just looked at all the pride passages, but I have it written somewhere. Oh, it's actually right here in Proverbs 6.
That's following.
It is Proverbs 6.
Really
that makes
lucky.
sense. That's
really
right. Okay.
Lucky of you.
Okay. So essentially, here's the story that I have written down. It's a story about Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And Muhammad Ali was flying on an airplane.
Oh, I've heard this.
You heard? Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, it's good. That's why I heard it from somebody too, and I wrote it down. Yeah. So Muhammad Ali is flying on an airplane. And the flight attendant, that's
the way it goes. Okay. Yeah.
So the flight attendant, she comes up to Muhammad Ali and she sees he's not wearing a seatbelt. And she says, sir, you need to put your seatbelt on. He said, Superman don't need no seatbelt. You remember what she said?
Yeah.
Do you remember
Superman don't need no airplane.
Superman don't need no airplane.
Yeah.
She's
that's
like,
right.
If you're really Superman, you don't need to be flying an airplane. You can fly yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Supposedly he went ahead and collected up. I mean, you know, I haven't ever like fact checked that or whatever, but that's like really good illustration right there.
Okay, but when you think about like an arrogant, and this could be like, I mean, look, I got nothing against Muhammad Ali, but like a lot of fighters, they're arrogant. And I know that sometimes it's part of like the show that they put on, right? But you have that contrasted with another story that I wrote down, and it was of the Greek philosopher Socrates. Have you heard this one? I bet you have. I'm telling you, this is season 5. I can't remember some things I did last week. So I'm pretty sure in the first 4 seasons of the podcast, I bet I told this story. If you watch the podcast and you remember me telling this story, you can let me know. But there's a story about a Greek philosopher named Socrates. We've heard of him, like not like anyone hasn't heard of him. And he was very famous, and he had all these people that wanted to come study under him. And so he would tell them, go look into a pond and come back and tell me what you saw, of all his prospective disciples. Have I told this before? Do you remember this one?
This sounds familiar, but I don't know if I've heard it from you.
So Socrates would basically tell all these wannabe disciples, prospective disciples, go look in a pond and come back and tell me what you see. And the senior disciples of Socrates, ones who are already under him, they're like, why are you doing that? Like, what's the purpose of that test? And the quote says, Socrates said, I am ready to accept all of those who see the fish swimming in the pond. But those who see only their own image mirrored in the water are in love with their own ego. I have no use for them. So he says, I want you to go look in a pond. And if you see fish, or you see grass, or you see rocks, or you see, you know, the bottom, or you see a frog, then Socrates can tell you're focused on other things. But if you come back and say, man, I look good in that pond. Like, did you see how good I looked? He's like, I got no use for that guy who's full of his ego. There's another quote that I tried to find, and I could not find it. If someone else knows where it is, send it to me, because I looked at my Logos notes. I know it's there. I just can't remember how it worded. But in one time I was studying the Roman Empire, and there was somebody, it might have been like it was a Roman historian or something, but he was talking about the character of one of the Roman emperors, and he was talking about it in a negative light, which obviously meant the guy's dead, or he wouldn't have written it by that time. But he was talking about how this Roman emperor was so vain. And he said he used to stand in his armor in front of a mirror and just look at himself. And I thought, wow. I got to say, like, he's calling. Now, look, I'm not saying you can't look at yourself in a mirror. Like, I looked at myself in a mirror this morning to make sure, like, okay, my hair's not all over the place, right? But it does give the idea that, like, don't put too much stock in your physical appearance, you know? Like, make sure that you have an appropriate, like, you're allowed to look nice, right?
Yeah.
But don't think that all your value and wealth, and just don't stand in front of the mirror and be like, man, look how good I look, right?
Yeah.
At some point, like, when is that starting to approach on vanity? You know, I'm not saying you can't make sure your hair looks nice. I'm not saying you can't wear any makeup. I'm not saying you can't look nice or have nice clothes or make sure your shirts are ironed, right? That's respectable. But it was interesting to me. I wish I could find that quote where he talked about how this guy was perceived vain. And of course, it was in that culture when I don't think everybody had mirrors in their houses, right?
Yeah.
But it was this guy who was so in love with himself that, of course, you know, Socrates would say, I don't want anything. I don't want that guy as my disciple. Anyway, I can't find that. So
I'll try to think about that. Look that up later. That's interesting.
Yeah, I tried to find it. I Googled it. And one website, actually, that I Googled it, it had in the little search line, it acted like it had the story, but I couldn't actually find the story. You know, it's 45 minutes. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's a good place to like.
Let's go ahead and stop here. We'll come back next week and we'll talk about what are some potential causes of pride, right? And what we're going to talk about, if you want to work ahead, read what the New Testament, just pick a New Testament reading, read about money. Or think about this. How could money, how much money you have, how much money other people don't have, how could that influence prideful thoughts? Education level, right? I got a personal story about this one. You've heard before if you watch the podcast, but I'll tell you. Who you're related to. Does the Bible ever have any examples of anybody? Not asking you. This is for the viewer to think about until next episode, because I know you'll answer it like that.
I'm going to throw something out here.
Okay. Is there ever anybody in the Bible who thinks that their acceptance by God or by Jesus is based on who they're related to, or what groups they run and what circles they run and what schools they've been to, those sorts of things, right, in the Bible? And then we'll look at man-made tradition. Some groups. Is there any group in the Bible that thought they'd be accepted, or basically thought that they could usurp God's word with their own traditions? All right, go ahead. You got something to say?
I was going to ask you, was it Didius Julianus?
I don't know. What's the story say?
That he had something to do with a mirror, and I'm going to have to read more about it. I was just doing a quick search just to see if I could find it.
The one I was looking for, I couldn't find.
Hit your head, or, jog your memory or whatever.
No, that might be it. All right. So here's your homework. Think about things in the Bible that are said to cause pride, be potential sources of pride. Could be money. Money's not evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. The love of money. 1 Timothy 6, a place you could read. You could do some reading maybe in, I don't know, John 7, maybe Acts 4.
It was him.
Maybe Matthew 3, maybe John 8, 32 through 45. And we'll come back next week and we'll look at the potential causes maybe for pride in all of us. This is not me and Scott saying we have no problem with pride. If we did that, you'd be like, I don't think these guys should be teaching an episode on.
Yeah.
Right. We all need to look at ourselves in the proverbial mirror, right? And look at God's word and see if we're guilty of any of these things. All right. So next week we'll come back. We'll talk about some potential causes of pride. We'll talk about how to cultivate humility. Any last words?
That's it for now.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of the Authentic Christian Podcast. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you back on the next episode. Think about it. Think about what causes pride, what are sources of pride, and how can we cultivate humility?
Yeah, put a comment. We'll glance at that. I mean, it's always nice to get feedback.
That's
it really
right.
is.
It is.
It really is good to get feedback.
Love to hear from you all, and we will see you back next week on this episode of the Authentic Christian Podcast. I'm Aaron. This is Scott. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. Thanks for watching the Authentic Christian Podcast. If you want to watch the rest of this episode or other episodes, you can go to our website, gbntv.org, and click on the On Demand section. Or you can go to YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, or you could download the Gospel Broadcasting Network app. Just go in the App Store, search Gospel Broadcasting Network, download the app, and you can watch this show and many other great shows and learn more about the Bible. Thanks for watching the Authentic Christian Podcast. We'll see you back on the next episode.